Hello guys, welcome to the video. My name is Mohammed Yasser. I'm Microsoft MVP, and in this particular F&O series we do simplify all the complex concepts and topics and Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operation. I do lots of videos on finance and operation. If you haven't watched my earlier video, do watch all of those videos apart from watching this video. Okay, so with that note, let's get into the today's topic, and today's topic is going to be the continuation of some of our couple of two videos in the past. Like we did two videos before this, part 1, part 2, and this is part 3 of that particular continuation. So in this particular video we are going to explore more about the physical and financial inventory concepts that we just started in the earlier video. Just in case if you missed the earlier video, do watch it and come back, but I can also give you a quick recap of what happened in the earlier video right now. Okay, so in the earlier video we did covered this concept where I have actually purchased an item using a purchase order 1, and that particular item is purchased for the cost of $100. We purchased 10 quantity, so totally the cost for the first purchase order is $1,000. And then we put another purchase order. Now we assume that the cost increased to 120, so we purchased 10 quantity for $120. So we placed 2 purchase order, and then later on, out of this 20 quantity, we only sold 8 quantity to a customer, and this 8 quantity is sold using a cost price of $110 each, meaning for 8 the cost is going to be $880, right? This 110 is a calculation coming as a part of the running average calculation. What is running average cost calculation? What is running average cost is we already discussed in the earlier video in a detailed way. Watch that to understand it better, but if you already know, then the 110 is basically the running average, meaning the average cost of all of this. 2200 divided by 20 is 110. So 110 times 8, 880 is going to be the cost, and 1600 because I'm going to sell it for $2000 with some profit. Of course I need some profit, so 1600 is my revenue, 880 is my cost. What will be the margin, meaning the profit, is going to be the difference of this two. Okay, so that is what we discussed in the earlier video. We also discussed that the difference between these two is going to be my profit, but this is based on the running average cost, which is temporary calculation, which is the closest representation of my cost and the margin. But at the end of every month we do the concept of inventory closing comes into picture. When we actually do the inventory closing, we follow either a FIFO, LIFO date, or weighted average, whatever your inventory evaluation technique is. Let's say in this example I'm following FIFO. If I'm following FIFO, then according to the FIFO logic, since I'm selling only 8 out of 20, its initial 8 is gone from the first batch of purchase order. So since the 8 is gone from the first batch of purchase order, the cost price is only $100 each. So it's realistically needs to be $800 as a cost price, not $880, which is just a temporary cost price. So when I do the inventory adjustment, the system already automatically adjusts my cost associated with the sales as $800. So the margin right now is going to be little, like it's going to bumping up a little bit, right? Because the cost is less, not 8, so there is a deviation in $80, so the cost is going to bump up a little bit more now. So this is the whole concept that we discussed in the earlier video, but the whole logic of this can be affected by a parameter named as the include physical value, which is available within the inventory item within the item model group. I will show you shortly. So we're going to do two scenarios. In one scenario we're going to create a purchase order of 10 quantity with 100 as a cost price, and I'm going to invoice the purchase order, and I'm going to do another purchase order. In this case I'm only going to receive it and not invoice it. Okay, so totally there are 20, out of which 10 is financially updated, and second one is only physically updated, not financially updated, meaning the invoice is not created. But I'm going to completely sell everything using a purchase order, using a sales order. Unlike here I only sold 8, here I'm going to sell all 20 and wipe out my inventory. So now we will see what happens when the checkbox is checked, and now we will see the same scenario, what happens when the checkbox is not checked, when to turn on the checkbox, when not to turn on the checkbox. All that we are going to see in the today's video. With that, let's get started with today's video. So we have created this item model group, and the item model group general, we normally use it, and this particular item model group is include physical value checkbox enabled. And I have created another new item model group where the include physical value checkbox is not enabled. Okay, and this checkbox is only usable when my inventory model is FIFO, LIFO, LIFO date. It's not eligible for the weighted average date. Okay, just remember that. We will see all those concepts of inventory models later in detail, but for now let's only focus on the physical value checkbox. So I have already created an item with the physical value included with using the item model group general, and I have created another item which is no physical value with the item model group of no physical value checkbox enabled. Okay, so there are two items. Remember, one is the physical value included, another is a no physical value included. I believe it's getting refreshed. Let me go back to that item quickly. So that's the no physical value checkbox enabled item. Okay, so now let us, as we discussed, let's put a purchase order for this particular item. So the purchase order is here. So I have already created a purchase order to save some time. You see, I have already invoiced the purchase order as well. Okay, this is the purchase order number 1 that we discussed here. This one, this is already invoiced, as I said. Now let's do the second purchase order, and let's not invoice it, let's only receive it, and it's for $120. Okay, so that's the second purchase order. I have already created 10 quantity for $120. The price is increased for the same item, so let me go and quickly receive it. I have already confirmed it. Let's receive this purchase order. In this case, I'm only going to receive it. I'm not going to invoice it, as we discussed. Okay, so the purchase order is received. So we know what happens here. If I now go and check my on-hand inventory, get into the physical financial value, we know exactly what happens. We've already seen this. It's now going to include the physical cost amount, and both, even though it's not financially updated, it will still include the physically updated cost and financially updated cost, totals it both, divides it by 20, and then it identifies the running average cost as $110. Okay, so the $110 is going to be the running average cost, because in this case I am using the physical value checkbox enabled in this particular item. Okay, so now I am going to place this item in a sales order and fully get rid of them. All 20 quantity is going to be gone, and it's for $200. That's my profit. I mean, that's my revenue. 200 into 20. Okay, 4,000 is going to be my revenue. So let's confirm it. Let's post the packing slip. This is all. And let's also invoice it. So after I invoice it, all 20 is gone from the inventory. So now you will see something interesting. So let's go into the inventory journal. So it's going to use 110 as a running average cost to temporarily calculate the margin. So it's going to use a running average cost price, which now we feel will be the best representation of the cost price, which could even be the real cost price after the inventory adjustment, or close to the real cost price upon the inventory adjustment is done. So right now until the end of the month, this is going to be in my books as a profit that I will be receiving out of the sales, which is nothing but um, uh, $1,800. The $1,800 is coming into picture because it is 110 into 20, right? So 110 is my average cost price. So which means that if I go to the whiteboard, you see this is 110 is the average cost price into 20. So it's considering 220 as my cost price, 4,000 as my sales price. So difference between these two is 1,800 is considered as my temporary profit until the inventory closing is run. But by the end of the month, when the inventory closing is done, the actual cost price will get adjusted. What is the actual cost price? The first 10 is calculated at 1000, the second 10 is calculated at 1200. So 10 into 100 into 10, 120 into 10, 1000, 1200, and 2200 is also the actual inventory actual cost price after the inventory closing. So literally this is a very closest representation and little more accurate representation of my cost price, right? So even after the inventory adjustment, the profit is going to remain the same. It's going to be the 2200, because in this particular case, even though the second PO is not invoiced, second PO is only physically updated, but still that is also included as a part of my running average cost price calculation. So now it is giving me a little more closer approximation of my actual cost price. In this case, in this scenario, it's not even a closer guess of your cost price, but it is the exact cost price even after inventory adjustment is going to be 2200. It's going to give me the same profit margin of 1800, right? Now in the second scenario, let's replicate the same. In this case, in a second item that I will be using, I will not be using the include physical value checkbox enabled. Okay, so let's see what happens now. So I am placing the second item, which is with no physical value checkbox checked, and this item I have already invoiced it, as you can see. So if you see this item, since I have already invoiced it, let me get into the on hand inventory, which is supposed to be 10 because I only received the first PO, and there is no physical cost, there is only financial cost, which is 1000, and right now the cost price is, running average cost is 100. Okay, so let's keep the screen here and let's move to, this is the first PO. Let's go to the second PO, which is this one. Second PO is for 120,200, 10 quantity, right? So let's go and receive the PO. Product receipt. In this scenario, we are not going to invoice it, right? So I have received the PO. Now that I have received the PO, in the previous example, we have seen that here the physical cost will come into picture and the system will automatically change this to include the physical and financial together divided by 20. This becomes 110, right? But now if I refresh it, of course the physical cost is here, financial cost is 1000, but the running average is not changed to 110. The running average still remains 100 because my in this particular case the include physical value checkbox is disabled, so this is not going to include the physical cost as a cost during the running average cost calculation. So it's only including the 1000 divided by not just including, not including the 10 quantity which is only physically updated, only including 10 quantity which is financially updated. So it's only including 1000 divided by 10 and it still remains 100. So in this scenario, if I go and sell this particular item using a sales order, let's see what happens. I'm going to sell all 20 for 4,000. Let's see what is going to be our profit here. Confirm it. Post the packing slip. And finally, let's invoice it as well. So upon invoicing, let us check the profit now. Now let us check the invoice journal. So here you see that the 200 is the 200 and 400 is the revenue, and here the margin is going to be 2000 because the system is following $100 cost price per unit into 20 times, which is 2000, right? So you see here you have this one as a calculation. Okay, so right now, but 2200, when I run the inventory closing later on, actually it is going to be 2200. Right now the margin for this is 2000, but the actual margin is only 1800. So which means that this is showing my profit slightly incorrectly, and this is actually not being my exact representation of the real cost, right? It is giving me some deviation when I run the inventory closing. Of course, in both the cases the adjustment will be done and all will be corrected by the end of the month, but until then this is not actually the perfect guess of my cost price, but this is the more accurate guess of my cost price. This is because the inventory is actually coming in invoiced, inventory coming in not even invoiced, but it is going out. So whenever you have a scenarios where your inventory turnaround time is really fast, meaning you're purchasing stuff and then the invoice you will be receiving only after a month, by the end of the month, but before even you receive your invoice for a specific stock that you purchased, you are quickly going and selling them before, only when it is physically updated, not even financially updated. In such cases, I believe include physical inventory checkbox will be good, because it is giving us a more closer guess of the cost price, and you won't see a much of surprises after you run the inventory closing. Whereas if if in your scenario you always tend to sell your stock only after you um, invoice it, so it's very straightforward. In such cases it is more easy and simple to disable the physical value checkbox and just enable the disable the just disable the physical value checkbox. In such cases the system will only consider the running average cost which are financially updated, right? So it becomes more straightforward. The average is easily calculated and becomes more simpler for us to also understand and calculate. So in such cases it's better to turn off, just in case you are always invoicing before you perform the sales, right? But in some situations, even if you are actually selling by only purchasing, it is gets trickier if you are enabling this, and it will also give you some wrong guesses of cost price in some scenarios. So even when you are actually only physically updating a purchase order and selling it, uh, and you are keeping the include physical value checkbox checked, in some scenarios it is not recommended. What are those scenarios? We will be covering in the next video. But in the majority of the times, of course, if you are only physically updating a PO and selling it, without even before the invoices. I believe this is a good approach to follow, but in some cases it's not that straightforward. It could be slightly trickier. That is what we will discuss in the hopefully next video, guys. And I hope now the concept of this and this is clear. Thank you so much for all of your support, and if you like my video, please do me a favor by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video, and also commenting whether they are really helpful or not, and also sharing the videos to the larger community and recommending it to your friends is going to really help me a lot. Thank you for watching the video. See you again in another video.